Hello, I would like to welcome you to the Grant Management System for Federal Programs. I'm Beth Wooster. I am the ESEA Federal Programs Administrator for the state of Nebraska, and I'm going to introduce the rest.
Hi, I'm Dottie Hoisman. I am also on the federal programs team. I am a federal programs reviewer.
Hello, Kirk Russell, Title I Specialist and Assistant Federal Programs Administrator. Oh, I get to stay, okay. All right, let's jump right in. Want to slow you down. Once you get access to your grants management account and you get to your link, HTTPS, make sure all of that detail is in there for you on your browser to get to the login screen. So slow down just a little bit before you jump in with your email, password, and hit login. Look for, it's just continually things get updated in announcements. They've color coded a little bit for you to show the differences. Make sure that you're looking at the notice of funding availability as well. And that's for all grants, not just ESSA, that's IDEA, could be McKenty-Vento, certainly SPED IDEA, and my Perkins is the other one. The other one would be look at and check into the upcoming announcements there in the lower right quadrant as well. Okay, once you're in with email and password, your first landing screen, and again, I want to slow you down. Beth's going to jump into where you actually get into the grant in GMS Access, but there is another window or two that can open up for you in user maintenance. So we'll jump in there. And so here's that screen, and one of the things that you can look at in here is to actually pop in the email of people on your team. You could check your bookkeeper out, see if your principal's listed in there. I also know that we know going forward, if you're a district in ESU 2, 7, 10, or 16, those ESU people may also want or need access, and this is where you would actually go to find out if they're already built into the system and locate them and see what access privileges they have. So on the next page, it opens up, you were searching for, it should show their first, last name, the email, and you'll also see in there under available business roles as well as business roles to assign what access you can give them. So a bookkeeper can get access, they're allowed to enter data, they're also able to assist you with reimbursements there. So depending on what kind of access you want to give and allow, there's a place in there. And before I move on, we also want to help you a little bit with cleaning up and keeping the GMS cleaned up, and that is, you'll notice on the right side of the column the unassigned word, unassigned in purple. If you're trying to remove someone that was in the district prior and is no longer there, two-step process, make sure you hit unassigned first and then move down and click the remove tab at the bottom. Okay.
All right. So I'm going to take over with the access to the grant. So to access the grant, you'll click the GMS Access Select, which it's on that same first page that you were on before. When you get in, you're going to want to be sure that you select the right year. So it's automatically going to default to 2022, but if you're working on the CARES grant, that's actually a 1920 grant. If you're doing amendments, lots of times those are going to be in the 21. So the grants that you'll be accessing this year probably are going to be the 1920, so it's going to say 2020, the 2021, which is going to say 2021, or the 21-22 are the new grants. And so this year it's going to default to the 2022. And you can toggle with those. The next thing I want to point out is once you on the left-hand side in the circles, it's going to show where your grants are in the status. So if you've got a final approval, like on that first one, the early childhood state grant, it says final approved, it says the date that it was approved, and then it says view GAN. If you click that hyperlink on the view GAN, it will show you your GAN, and you'll want to print that and keep that in a file so you have it. The next pink circle down shows that it's in progress. That means it has been submitted to NDE and it has started to be viewed. So the first reviewer has already viewed it and it's in the final reviewer's hands. So if it says in progress, that means it's in the process of being reviewed. The next one I wanted to show you is where it's underlined. It says Amendment 1. The original was already approved, and so they've created an amendment. And so this is Amendment 1, and it says not submitted. That means they're working on it at this time. They can always go back to the original application by clicking that arrow, and there's a toggle that you can then choose the original application if you want to go back to see that. Or if they're going to work on Amendment 1, they just click the open button. On the next one down, it says not submitted. That means they're still working on it, but it's not yet submitted. So I just wanted to make sure you saw all of those. The other thing I wanted to point out is instructions are always up in the top right-hand corner. So if you need instructions on how to do anything, you can click that hyperlink. And at the bottom on the screen before, 2 screens before, at the very bottom where it says contact us, that is on every single page. So you want to be sure that if you are working on any of the grants, you can always go to the bottom where it says contact us, and you can it'll take you to the website that has everybody listed. I'm going to have Dottie take over.
Okay, so the next part is just kind of walking about if you're going to make some changes to the grant contacts. So this is a big change for the 2021-2022 school year. There is a new unified grant profile that's in the 2022 toggle in the top left. And that unified grant profile collects some information. So then every time you do a grant in the upcoming year or years, you don't have to put all of that information in there. So if you look at that very carefully, that'll say that, oh, I've got my unified grant profile. It says that the final was approved, and it was approved on 6/11 of 2021. And so that was Amendment 2. So I'm looking at this as a reviewer and thinking, oh, that means that someone went in and changed some of the information in there. This unified grant profile at any point in time can be changed. This is really critical to keep the contacts updated. So I'm going to show you the next slide that if I would click amend right now, here's what I'd get. I'd get this slide that shows what's in there for my contacts. So you'll see it's got the central contacts, the DUNS and the SAM number. Those are all the tabs, and Kirk's going to address the DUNS and the SAM number a little bit later. But if you look down there, it's got the administrative office, so it's asking for all the information. My guess would be those addresses don't change. But it's very possible that the authorized representative, which is in most cases the superintendent, it's very possible that person may change. So you need to make sure you update that. The business manager may change. May be time for the business manager that they're retiring in December, and all of a sudden you want to make sure that we need to make sure we have a good contact. So you need to go in there and update that. So you may amend this several times during the course of the 2022 year. Just keep it updated with the most important information. It's also has lots of other details underneath there. There's a fiscal contact. If that's not the superintendent, or even if it is, you'd put that person in there. There's a federal programs contact. There's a variety. I believe there's a homeless McKinney-Vento contact. There's lots of spots underneath there. So this is only a partial piece of the page, but you can see once you click on UGP across the top, it has all of those. And again, this is for us to then the system, the system that has all of this data, transfers it then over to your grants for the 2022 year. Okay, so, this is what sometimes happens. Districts go to click submit and there's errors, or they do save a page at the bottom and all these red things show at the top and they're like, what did I do wrong? So always look at the top and say, oh, well, look at that. I forgot to put the superintendent's last name. I forgot the first name. I forgot the phone number. I forgot the email. I forgot the prefix for the phone number. I forgot a lot of stuff in regards to the superintendent. So it is not going to let you save that page until you correct those red errors. So take a look at that, maybe take a screenshot of it. It would always be at the top as you continue to save. So you save again, and let's say this time you forgot to put the phone suffix or suffix for the superintendent. Maybe you put in a letter instead of a number. It's going to say it has to be a number value. So just read that carefully to see what it is you need to fix each time. Okay, and then we're going to transfer and talk a little bit about the DUNS number and the SAMI number, which is also one of those sub-tabs on the Unified Grant Profile. So I'm going to turn it over to Kirk.
Thanks, Dottie. So quickly, I'm using a cheat sheet here on another laptop. So we really wanted to just update you. There's nothing that you have to do at this time. Nothing that you need to do at this time. But we've been notified, and I'm going to give you a web link. You can look up and search gsa.gov, and you're looking, the GSA stands for U.S. General Services Administration. And on one of their web pages, they are referring to, actually they're telling us that by April of 2022, in sam.gov, they are going to be updating. And we've started down the road with SAMI. Now today, when I was looking to get ready for the presentation, they've changed it to the wording Unique Entity Identifier. And so, again, terminology, whatever, you're dealing with the government. Again, you don't have to do anything at this time. Hopefully it says within sam.gov, it's going to give a new number. They're moving away from DUNS. So FYI, heads up on that coming.
Okay, so if you didn't hear, Beth and I were laughing in regards to the new name. So I hope you were chuckling along at home or at your desk as well. Okay, so another tab as we're working our way across that Unified Grant Profile is a Risk Assessment tab. So the Risk Assessment tab just has the superintendent or the authorized representative completing information in regards to the systems or the processes that are in place within your district. So this is just a partial piece of that. So you can see at the top, does your entity have prior experience with federal grants? Okay, so if so, how many years? Does your entity have new fiscal grant personnel, accounting systems, technology? So you're going to put yes or no into all of those. So just a variety of questions, and that's how the federal government wants us to collect as to whether your district would be at risk, a high risk or a medium risk or a low risk in regards to the processes that are in place. The next page is the assurances page, and by now I'm sure you're used to assurances if you've done any ESSER grants. And those are all just clicking that you're going to review the assurance statements that are listed on the left-hand side. There's a link to each one of those, and that you are agreeing, again, the authorized representative is agreeing that the district will follow all of those assurances. The next is, this is to me, I'm going to just say this is my favorite piece of the entire Unified Grant Profile, because you can look at this one document and just very quickly see all of the grants that you have, what you have allocations, how much had been reallocated, if you released any funds, if there's carryover. This is the summary page. I mean, what more would you want? A summary of where your dollars are, what you've spent, what you haven't spent, just a great reference in regards to your district. So again, use this page. It will be awesome for you. And then the last page here or the page right here is the grant summary page. So if you look again at the grant summary page, this will give you more information, and it'll show you in regards to how you have those dollars budgeted. So I can look at this and note that in SPED planning, Region Team Grant 6416, I have $24,500 that are budgeted for salaries. I can look right across and see I have $14,800 for 300s in professional technical services. I can also go down and I can look at my IDEA spending and see where I have my dollars allocated. So as you get grants approved, these will pop up in here and you'll be able to see all of that. So again, nice way. Great communication tool for the authorized representative to share with the bookkeeper, the business manager, whomever needs to have this information to make sure that, hey, remember we have this money here. Remember we need to go from here. So great, again, wonderful summary pages. These are really awesome for districts to have in front of them. And then the last page is the submit page. The submit page is always on every grant, and the first thing you have to do is run the consistency check. And the consistency check just does all the back work in the computer to make sure that you have everything filled out correctly. So it's very possible that you do the consistency check and all of a sudden you have all these red errors at the top. So it's going to tell you what doesn't match, what you forgot, anything that the system can catch. If you do get any red errors, that's something you want to take a screenshot of and then put it off to the side so you know, and then go back and fix those. Come back and run the consistency check again and see if you're able to pass consistency check. If you do pass consistency check, you're going to get a screen that looks like this. It'll say the application has not been submitted. So let's say that you go into panic and say, oh no, I know I forgot to put so-and-so as the homeless person. If changes are needed after running the consistency check, the only person that ran the consistency check can unlock the application. So if you're the bookkeeper and let's say the administrator, your superintendent already ran the consistency check and she's ready to click submit to NDE, and you go running in the office saying, wait, I forgot to do this person's name. Okay, the person that has to unlock it has to be the superintendent because they're the ones who ran the consistency check. So keep that in mind as you're doing that. We get a lot of calls where people say, I can't get my grant to unlock. And so you have to kind of walk through to figure out who it was that last had it. And then last but not least is you can submit it to NDE. So that's your last piece. Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna take it
sorry.
back. That's okay. All right. I want to talk about the next piece is in that top right-hand corner where it says Unified Grant Profile, and there are a few little screens or some hyperlinks, and I wanted to just show you where it is before I go to the next page because I've blown them up so you can see. I just wanted you to know that when it says printer friendly, if you click that button, it's going to put it into a format that'll make it a lot easier for you to print. So you can always click that button on any of the grants. It's there. The other thing that is consistent among all the grants is the click to return to GMS Access select page. If you click that, it's going to take you back to the page that has all of your grants. So sometimes those buttons are so close together, it's hard to see exactly which ones. So that's why I'm blowing it up so you can see which one will take you to which screen. Then the next one is the click to return to main list. That'll take you back on the bottom left there where it's the menu list. That'll allow the user maintenance or the grant access. And then there's always the sign out also. So after you've worked on it, you want to be sure that you sign out. We have had problems in the past where SUP might be working on a grant, they don't sign out, they open up another window, they log in on another window or another, maybe at home while it's still open, and they make changes. They've got two different systems open. So maybe they submit and then they get back to work and they're like, oh, I forgot to submit that, and they'll submit again. Well, then we have two of the same grant and it causes a lot of problems. So when you're done working on it, you want to be sure that you do log out. All right. The next piece is when you're ready to start a grant, they're going to always be at the bottom, and the grants that are available to you will always be listed at the bottom. You will click the create button. Once you push that create button, it's going to take a little bit as it opens up the grant, and it will open right onto the grant, onto the overview page. But if you work on it for a while and then you leave and you want to come back, then you're going to go in, and for this example, you would click the open button. So if you're just going to be working on the grant, always click the open button. When it opens, it's going to take the grant overview page, and this is a screenshot of that. And then, I don't know if I think it's up here still. I haven't missed it. The allocations page is going to have your allocations. For the consolidated grant, it's going to show you how much money you have in each of the different title funds. And then at the bottom, there is a spot that if you are wanting to transfer funds, this is where you would transfer. So Title IV could be transferred to Title I or to Title II. Title II could be transferred to Title IV or Title I. Title I cannot transfer out, and you can't transfer Title III funds either. So this is where you would do it. You would put in the amount you're going to transfer, then click the calculate totals and then the save page. So if you're not transferring funds, you don't need to worry about it. This is just, I wanted to be sure to point this out for those that do transfer funds. All right, the next thing to point out is in that top right-hand corner up above where I had the printer-friendly stuff. That is, on the consolidated app, because there's multiple grants within that one grant, you will toggle back and forth between the grants using that top drop-down menu. When you click the arrow, it's going to open up to the different choices. So the ESSA Consolidated is the main page that comes up. Then there's also the Title I, the Title 1D, the Title 2A, the Title III, Title III IE, and then the Title IV grants, all within this one grant. So sometimes schools are like, I don't know how to get to the different grants. You're going to use that drop-down menu to do that. Also, I wanted to point out the contact information on the 2021 grant, you don't have to do anything to because it's going to feed from the Unified Grant Profile. But on past years, that contact information had to be filled out. And if you are filling out your ESSER 3 grant, we've asked you to make sure you update your contact information because it was last year's grant. You will have to still do that in the contact information page. Then the district goals and needs on the consolidated grant feeds into all of the other grants. And so as you fill out the district goals and needs pages, any of them that you are funding with the different grants will feed into the budget. So this has to be done before you can do anything. If you don't select a funding source in the goals and needs, if you were to go into one of those other grants, you would not have a budget. So you have to kind of work through the steps in the ESSA Consolidated before you move on to the other grants. The other thing I want to be sure to point out was this application history button, which is after the submit button. If you wanted to see where it was or how many times a grant was returned or who did, if someone approved something, it has the name of whoever was logged in and who approved it or who submitted something, or if on some schools they have a grant writer that would submit the application to the superintendent, who then has to submit it to NDE. So that application history button will tell you exactly where it is in the scheme of things. And then that instruction button that I talked about earlier is highlighted on this screen. Okay, is this still me? Okay.
Okay, congratulations, you've got it, you've submitted. And so we are onward and onward, and here we go. So the system, once submitted, comes to your Title I, McKinney-Vento, SPED person that's assigned to review the grants. And the system generates an email to us that notifies us that we have a grant in the GMS and that we should be looking at it. So we've taken a look at it, and we've obviously, if we're returning for a change or an edit, we are returning to you. You also should generate and get an email back. Yet another place for you to check is certainly get the correct year that you toggle for access year, get into the correct grant. Now the slide that's showing here is the CARES Act ESSER grant. And you'll see that the Amendment 1, it was returned. It stamps the date on it. One of the other things that I want to clue you into is then move over to the right where it says Review Summary. Click on that box, but make sure a super key point here is to make sure your pop-ups are opened up or on so that you can see these next few pages in the checklist. And once you do check on the review summary, so then the picture at the bottom of this slide shows, you can see who the NDE reviewer is. In this case, it's Jim Kent. He rejected it on 7/19, and then move your cursor and go to the review checklist. Make sure you have your pop-ups on. And this will take you to that checklist where for question 1, he's telling you that on the staff pages, the amount that from the budget detail 100s column does not match one of the instructional staff, non-instructional staff pages. And he's put in a little note, or sometimes Beth will return it as well, and has a narrative for you to follow. I will also say, most all of us have instigated a second level of notification back to y'all. We personally send it to our federal programs contact, superintendent, sometimes bookkeepers, and we'll actually copy and paste and or give you some additional details in an email directly to you, telling you, hey, heads up, we're returning your grant, besides the generated email from GMS. Okay, now, so you've got notice, you've found it, you're back in GMS. I almost wanted to talk, did we jump to that? Did I go past that slide where they needed to unlock to work in it?
That's on the amendment.
Okay, it's
I just
coming,
didn't
okay,
get it in.
super duper. So let's talk through then amending. We've talked, you've reached out, we found out that something has changed, as you've heard about. We're changing people, we're changing an amount in the budget. So now we need to go in and amend the grant, and you institute that. So on your screens when you log in, you're going to come over on those blue horizontal lines and find the blue amend button, click. It spins a little bit. It's not a death disc, but sometimes we think it is. And it should then open up for you. And here's where, once you start an amendment, we need you to make sure that any of the folks working on it go immediately to your page lock control. You'll see on the far right that you can unlock a specific grant. I know in the consolidated grant, if it's a Title I amendment, you can drill down and get specifically to Title I. Over on the left-hand side there with the empty box, expand all, if you click on that box, it'll outline itself and get even more detailed to specific pages to unlock. So a couple of ways for you to navigate and unlock that. Key to everything we ask when you amend and all those is look for that you have a save page. If you've hit page lock and you leave and you start to work and you do not see or find a save page, you're not unlocked. So make sure you're critical that you have the save page. Okay, so we're on amendment. So immediately across the horizontal bars, let's go. First thing that we'd love for you to do is get to that amendment description. As a consolidated, be careful. There is, you get a choice of whether you're going in Title 1A, Title 2, Title 3, Title 4. So depending on where you're making the amendment, click on what program it's in, and then you get the pop-up narrative box. Give us a clue as to, briefly, where were you working at? What were you doing? What did you change? Make sure you save the page for us. Okay, access reimbursements. All right.
Okay, so now we have a lot of districts that'll say, hey, when are you going to send me my money? Well, the first thing you need to do is put in for a reimbursement request. So this section outlines how to do that. So if you look at this example here, it's under Perkins, and you can see that it's circled, that it says payments. So that's what you're going to do first. You're going to click the payments button. Then it will pull up a screen that looks like this. So if you can look at the details on this page, you can see that the current year allocations for this district is $392,240. You can also go down and see how much has been scheduled to be paid. How much, and scheduled means it's in the system and they're ready to transfer the money from NDE's account to your account, because that goes straight to the bank account. And it'll also show the reimbursements amounts and the totals there. So that page gives you a very nice summary of, do we have more that we could receive in regards to our reimbursement for this particular grant. So then the next page will show, this is a piece that you'll do. You'll have to select which program that you want to create a new request for. So if you, and you may already have one in here, so maybe you started a reimbursement request and something happened in the building. You had a fire drill, so you had to leave the building and you didn't get back into it today, so you come in tomorrow and you're like, oh, I need to create a new one. Well, if there's one down low where it says select reimbursement request type, there may be one already started. So always start there, look there first. If there is one, you'll just select the button way to the left, the radio button, and you'll open the request. If there isn't one, you'll need to create a new request, which is what's highlighted on this one. And then this is what it looks like when you get in there. So this is a reimbursement request, and you'll see that at the top it has some blanks up there, and that's what it will show. It will be blank. You need to input that information, make sure all of that's accurate. You'll notice kind of towards the top in the middle, it'll say select here if this is the final reimbursement request. Don't select that button unless you're asking for all of your funds. Be very careful in regards to selecting that. You can close that out later if you need to. So if you still have $5,000 in the grant, maybe there's a way you can still spend that and you don't want to make that your final, because then what happens is that money will come back to the department and then be dispersed to the districts that way. So you can see this chart. This chart is very simple. You just put your amounts over in the boxes, the rectangles over to the right. You indicate how much you've spent in each of those. You can see for this particular example, they have $200,000 that they're trying to get reimbursed in the supplies column. And you can also see then at the bottom, they put that it was capital assets, the expenditure code, they put the date it was done. And then at the very, very bottom, you're going to see the upload choose files. So this is where you indicate with whatever documentation you need to provide. So your fund audit reports, your invoices, that sort of thing. You would put those there and be sure to choose them, be sure to upload them. And again, that save page is really critical as well. So this is the page that has your totals on there. And then I learned something new. So I've been at the department a little over a year now, and this is a slide that when I saw it, I thought, what in the world is this? I'd never seen this slide before. On the top left, where it's circled with that yes button, I didn't know that button was there. I guess I should have read the grant a little bit better. But in essence, what that is you can go back, that will show you what you had on your grant. So I always thought I had to make a copy of it and put it somewhere so I could then fill it out on the reimbursement request. But it will pull up so you can see right side by side what it is you have budgeted in those amounts. And then you'll also see in the bottom left that somebody did upload some of the documentation that goes with this particular grant. So that's important to do as well. So this is a nice feature that, again, I didn't know was there. Let me go back for, what did I miss?
On the right-hand side, the reimbursed by lawful uses.
Okay, hold on. Oh, very good. Yes, thank you. Okay, so as you look at this, the right-hand side, that chart on the right-hand side, it will talk through, this looks like to me that it's a CARES ESSER1, and it will say where you put the administration, how much you had in administration. It'll list out all of the details and you'll place that in there. And then if you've already got reimbursement for it over way to the right, it'll show you previously what you've already requested. So again, good, that page, the one on the right is the page that you would see actually on that reimbursement request. Okay, so what last minute advice can we give you about the GMS? Well, there's a lot that can be said about the GMS, but it's not your enemy. It really is pretty easy, especially if you take your time. Kirk indicated to start with to read that beginning page. As a superintendent, I'm not sure I ever read that page, so that's nice to know. I'm learning as well. So hopefully you learned that from him. Also, please remember to keep supporting documentation of what you're doing in GMS for monitoring. So your time and efforts, your expense reports, your invoices, your inventory lists, those are something you need for monitoring purposes. So be sure to keep all of that. And then fiscal and programmatic monitoring happens every 3 years or more often as needed. And supporting documentation will be checked at that time. So there's also a link to a document here that you can go in and look at in regards to fiscal monitoring for ESSER. So that's something new that's on our webpage that you'll definitely want to look at for your ESSER grant. And that's something that our team worked on in collaboration with Tom Geschel. Okay, and I'm going to let Beth close. No, Beth says I can close up. Okay, so here we go. Any questions? If you have any questions, please at any time reach out to anyone on the screen. Or if you remember, at the bottom of the GMS page, it says it has a contact list. If you go into that contact list, you can find your federal programs reviewer, you can find your SPED people, you can find your Perkins, your 21st Century, whomever you need to talk to. So be sure to reach out to them. And emails are pretty simple at the department. It's first name dot last name at nebraska.gov. So that would get you an email address for anyone. But those are all of our work cell phones that are listed on here, and we'll be happy to help in regards to that. So at that time, I will just say thank you so much for listening to the session, and let us know if you have additional questions.